SOL Global Investments Corp is an international investment company with a focus on cannabis and cannabis-related companies in legal U.S. states. The company is also focused on the hemp and CBD marketplaces and the emerging European cannabis and hemp marketplaces, with investments and partnerships across cultivation, distribution, and retail. SOL Global has a research and development program with the University of Miami, which is focused on using proprietary cannabinoid therapy to treat concussions and head trauma. SOL Global Investments Corp is listed on the CSE and trades under the ticker symbol SOL.
I'm joined now by Brady Cobb, CEO of SOL Global via Skype. Brady, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I am rocking the free world. Thank you very much. Brady, let's start with an overview. What is the business model of SOL Global Investments?
So we're smart money in cannabis. We identify emerging markets, nascent markets, both in the U.S. and worldwide, and get in with the right partnerships early. We have a heavy focus on partnering within governments and learning the various different regulatory frameworks. I've been active in Washington, D.C. for the better part of 2.5 years now, working on reform. And one of the things we announced today is we're active participants in the passage of the Hemp Farming Act in the U.S., not for purely altruistic reasons. And today we announced our full hemp strategy, which we're very excited about, which is our first acquisition is a company called Blühen Botanicals, based out of Knoxville, Tennessee.
Wow, fantastic. And the hemp craze in the United States is really got some momentum, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, when the president of the Senate, and largely revered as one of the most conservative lawmakers in the U.S., personally sponsors the Hemp Farming Act, which took hemp and CBD products with less than 0.3% THC off Schedule 1. I mean, if you would have told me 3 or 4 years ago as a former lobbyist and attorney that was going to happen, I would have said you're getting high on your own supply. In fact, it happened. And it happened with largely an almost overwhelming positive vote across across party lines. So, we're seeing a lot of momentum in the U.S. There's a lot written about it. There's a lot of naysayers. I don't see a lot of these people that are sometimes talking about what's going on in D.C. when I'm going office to office. But we are making a lot of great strides, and we're incredibly bullish on the hemp and CBD space.
Yeah, sure. Wasn't CBD just descheduled from Schedule 1 to Schedule 5 or something as a result of the FDA's approval of Epidiolex?
Yes, it was. And the FDA is still ultimately looking at how it's going to treat consumer products, and they're going to, they're in the process of putting out guidance. Which anything related to the federal government, we all know, is going to take some time. But again, that's why we maintain such a robust presence and team in Washington. We're a part of those discussions, and knowing that regulation was coming from the FDA, given these are things that people are ingesting into their bodies, we took a very aggressive role when we were out looking for the right hemp partners. And we found Blühen Botanicals. What really drew me to them is they had a focus on the science side and the long play of a medical market and serving as a medical use. And ultimately, the only way to get there is to actually cultivate in a vertically integrated manner, which we have, to process, extract, and ultimately manufacture in a way that is GMP, EUGMP, and in my preference one day, ISO certified. To me, you have those certifications. I think the FDA is going to look at that a little bit differently than folks that are doing it in a different way or at a substandard. But also from a long view, given that there's a massive opportunity in Europe, largely very little cultivation in Europe, but there's certainly an appetite for the products. If we're GMP certified and EUGMP certified at our facilities, we have the opportunity, once we clear the hurdles from a red tape standpoint, to be able to service that market in Europe right here from the U.S. So that's ultimately what drew us to Blühen, and we're really excited.
Wow, amazing. What kind of market size are we talking here in for 2019 for you guys?
I think the sky's the limit, no, pun intended. You look at the size of the U.S. market, look at what happened in Canada. You had how many producers scale up to be ready for full legalization in Canada, and there was empty shelves in week 1. Look at the size of the United States, and the CBD is largely now, with the federal prohibition and the cloud lifted off of it, now folks are really starting to pay attention. So this market could be massive. our biggest problem and the reason we focused on finding the right operators is scalability. When I'm looking at how I'm going to grow in this market and what partners I wanted to find and investments I wanted to make when we were deploying capital, it was those that could scale with us and scale up ultimately to meet the demand. And we believe we're confident that we found that.
Sure. Okay, so are you going to seize the opportunity inherent in the THC side of things when that becomes descheduled to a controlled status as opposed to a banned substance?
Yeah, and I think ultimately the States Act is probably the most, the next in line to pass. The States Act would take it off Schedule 1 in states where it's legal. It's a bill I had the privilege of being a part of drafting. And it's ultimately something that I think has a better chance of passing, given how the composition of the Senate being conservative. I still think we're a couple of years away from a full legalization in the United States. It's coming. I mean, you now have states, Ohio, Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania. You can't carry the White House without winning those states. So everyone in D.C. has had to pay attention to it. I'm not a believer that all of a sudden today we're going to have Cory Booker's decriminalization bill passed, but I think we're going to see stepping stones to that point. And we are prepared to, we do have investments in the THC space, our primary one being Verano Holdings. That we press released that deal back in October where we took our Florida license and vended it over to them and also made an $88 million investment in cash to take approximately 20-something% interest in their company. They operate currently over 7 states, going to many more. They've, have a robust presence across the U.S. But again, what drew me to them is they're truly operators in the biggest sense. So we're excited about that investment, but we're also have other THC investments in various different portions of the marketplace in the U.S. to be able to seize upon it. And then we're active right now in Europe because we see Europe as kind of the next frontier, especially with the recent EU and WHO statements on cannabis.
Yeah, wow, really? So when you say the sky's the limit, you're not kidding. You recently bought back 5% of your issued and outstanding shares, and the audience is always curious as to why companies do that. So why did you buy back 5% of your outstanding stock?
We saw value. We knew what our balance sheet looked like. We knew what our NAV was, and we actually put a press release out on our NAV. And we were trading well below that, so we saw it as an opportunity to buy back our shares at a price that we believe was, we're undervalued in our opinion, given where our assets are and how we positioned ourselves in the marketplace. So it was nothing more than looking at it and going, there's an opportunity here.
Fantastic. So just for the audience that doesn't understand it, when the company buys back their shares, they're actually accruing more value per share to the company than there was previously. So it's the opposite of dilution. Brady, okay, we're going to leave it there for now. We're going to come back to you in the near future. That's a great introduction to the company. I look forward to following the story closely. Thanks for joining me today.
No, thank you. I'd welcome an opportunity to come see you in Toronto. Maybe we'll do it when it's not. Let's get a little closer to springtime. I'm a native Floridian, so spare me.
Sounds good. Or I'll come and visit you. How about that?
Come on down anytime.
All right. I'll be in touch. Thanks, Brady.
Thanks.